Two guys in the dark.
It was August 2001, and just like most freshmen, I live in the dorms at a state party school. A good buddy from military school, Bill, had went to the same college and lived a few floors below in the same dorm as me. For the most part, the first month or so of college was pretty normal. I went to most of my classes, partied just about every single night, chased girls around. That was enough for the moment. But things began to change one night, sometime in mid-September, and college for me would never be normal again. My dorm phone rings in the middle of the night. Hello? On the other end, I can only really describe the voice as the kind that you picture when you think about a computer talking. Kind of like an early model car GPS. Hi, Gary. How are you today? Not fully awake. I'm just confused at this point. Who is this? He repeats it. It becomes clear that I'm being screwed with, so I hang up and chuckle. Fucking Bill. Nice one. I pass back out. I end up forgetting about the call for a few days, and never mentioned to Bill or anyone else about it. After about a week later, I get another call around the same time of night. Hi, Gary. I'm watching you. Very nice. Very cliché. Seriously, Bill. How are you not knee-deep in Everclear or Tridelt in this hour? Enough already. Cade, who was my roommate, is going to start getting pissed off. I hang up. I casually confront my oh-so-clever amigo at breakfast the very next morning. He gives a genuinely confused response. Whatever. So a couple of days after the second phone call, I come home, and I had multiple messages on my answering machine. What the fuck? I barely knew that thing even worked. It's a computer voice guy. Message number 1. My machine cuts off first. 1 to 2 seconds of the message, which tells me that it's a bot set to play a message upon answering. Message number 2. I thought that I had asked you to answer my phone calls, Gary. Message number 3. Where might Gary be on a Tuesday night? The calls start coming more frequently over the next couple of months, starting at once a week, then once every 2 to 3 days, up to every day by Christmas break. Uneventful break, and back to school determined to become a new man. First night back. I get my first spring semester call from this voice box. How is your family in Cyprus? It's my hometown suburb. Okay, now this is BS, man. Calls become threatening and downright dark. I'm very interested, Gary, in being close to you. I have tools that I can bring. It is going to be all over very soon. One day I bring Bill and all my other buddies up to hear the messages. The guys are in shock. Around March, the calls were coming in, no fewer than 10 to 15 every single day. Seriously, but I finally get the message that I've been waiting for. The day, time, and location were set. We'll meet in front of Coleman Hall at midnight, Wednesday, 27th of April. We will take our friendship to the very next level. My home team crowd steadily built up throughout the afternoon and evening. I'm left with about 15 to 20 members in that platoon. I decided earlier that I was not going to allow all these knuckleheads to shadow me, but I would definitely use them in case of an emergency. I didn't want to risk him spooking out of the meet, so I let them know that they will need to stay inside the doors of the common area while I walk out to the meeting spot. About 100 paces out from my spot, I observe 2 things at the same time. Some kind of small, quick movement in front of the patio walkway that goes all the way around that building. And 2, the movement was in a spot along the walkway where the only normal uber bright bulb is out. I'm not exactly sure how I was able to see him, but I suddenly realize someone is crouching behind one of the contiguous cookie-cutter bushes outside the patio perimeter, right against one of the building pillars. In dark clothing and a hoodie, he is a few feet off from the path where I'm supposed to meet him, and positioned to where I really should not have been able to see him. Given the pillar blocking the shadow, plus the burnt-out light bulb, in fact, I could have easily walked all the way to the door without ever noticing someone down there. I sort of jump mid-step as this happens. I see him raise up a little, thinking they might have not seen him. I see him raise up and take a step towards me, and fight or flight hits. Before I realize what I'm doing, I'm in a dead sprint towards this motherfucker, who I'm guessing sees what I can't yet, which is my platoon busting through the front door in hot pursuit. The creeper runs out of there, running to the patio along Coleman Hall towards the parking lot. I realize that I'm moving fast enough to catch him, but everyone else is really far behind me. I also realize that I'm moving so fast I can't be protected as I turn hard right at the corner of the building. If he stops there, I'm toast. As I turn the corner, I see the van sitting along the parking lot in front of me. It's running, and the brake lights flicker on and off, park into drive, and begin inching forward towards the exit. The dude is of course heading for the van, which for some reason sent this whole new level of fear into me. This is it. This is really happening, and I'm going to get freaking murdered tonight. But I can't stop. Something keeps me moving forward. I guess I'd come this far, dealt with this crazy BS for almost a full year now, and completely unable to do anything other than try to ignore it. If I could get close enough to dive tackle this guy, I would still be on my own to deal with the creeper. His driver. And now I realize that there's a third one that was manning the sliding door. Awesome. I don't care how badass you think you are when you're a 19-year-old jock. Your chances of taking down 3 grown men that are already violent criminals and prepared to victimize are about 1 and not gonna freaking happen. My turn is wide and slow due to being full-on sprint, and I lose ground. I'm probably about 20 yards from the lot when he does a flying leap into the side of the van. There couldn't have been any rows of seats for a leap like that. Creep number 3 slams the sliding door shut as the van peels out of the parking lot, bangs a right, and is gone in an instant. We finally start walking back, and I'm reliving the scene as we retrace our steps. As we get closer to the original meeting spot, I see something that scares me more than anything else in the entire equation that was up to this point. On the opposite side of the pillar, where the creeping McCreep person was crouching, there's a video camera sitting on a stand pointed right at the spot where I would have been standing when I shouldn't have noticed him there. It was still being recorded. A couple of years back when I was in college, I was the victim of a long-term stalker. I'm a male, 20 years old at the time. It started out fairly innocuous. On Valentine's Day, I started to receive secret admirer-type text messages from an unknown number. I assumed that it was a friend of mine playing a joke, as I was in a room with a handful of tech-savvy people at the time. I tried to gauge their reactions and asked if anyone was messing with me. They all had denied it. I believed them. They're pretty bad liars. It was further confirmed that it was none of them when I got a phone call from the number. A voice on the other end said, "Is this my name?" I replied, "Yes. Who is this?" hoping that I could identify the voice. At that point, they had hung up and resumed texting me. Things started to get pretty weird when the person began asking pretty personal questions, including repeating asking, "Are you doing something tonight?" Which I replied yes. I happened to be working, but they kept insisting that we should meet up. On top of all this, I was getting various messages sent to me on separate emails. This confirmed that it wasn't a real number, and I now had a username to connect to this person. I don't know if it was their intention, but I actually enjoyed trying to figure out shit like this, and took it upon myself to expose this person without giving away anything about myself. So I kept it up. I kept texting back for a while, and dug more and more information about this person, compiling it into a profile and eliminating possibilities. Unfortunately, this just encouraged them, as they insisted I send pictures, take pictures, pics added to the conversation, things like that. Then they sent a weird one, a white lacy dress hanging in their closet with the accompanying text, "My wedding dress for when I marry you." They continued to pry about where I was going to be that evening, and I still refused to give some details. They dropped where they were going to be, a party on campus that very night. I couldn't go regardless, because I was working. Then I got another bombshell. They asked if I lived in apartment 68, which I did. I recognized the style of apartment they were in based on a picture from earlier, so I decided that I would throw a curveball. You live in this complex, right? What? How do you know? I recognize your door. All the shitty apartments had the same colored door frame, which was visible in the edge of a picture they sent. The conversation kind of fizzled out here. I didn't go to that party and didn't get any more text messages. Fast forward to October, the following school year. I was a senior and busy as hell. One evening I got a text from an unknown number. Is this? They used my full name this time. So I played dumb, pretended like I wasn't freaking out, especially after many months that this person was contacting me, and I still hadn't figured out who it was. These questions were instantly more personal and really weirded me out. Don't ruin the fun. Not knowing who I am is part of the mystery. I won't tell you who I am. Not now. Too much to lose. I don't want you to know, not because I'm being cruel. It's just better if you didn't know. I'm pretty tired of this shit and trying to work, but I do want to see if I can pick out any more details, so I'm doing the bare minimum to keep this going. Around December, the end of the semester, they proceed to call me multiple times. I denied every call, but they kept coming in. I think there were about 14 calls that night. I had to turn off my phone. The following week, I was in class. The students were presenting their final work on the projector, and I had queued multiple tabs on the projection computer. 2 different students had work on Google Drive. When the second student logged into their account, they didn't open a private window, so it had logged out the first student. I saw this happen, but the first student wasn't in the room, so when she came back, I asked her to re-log in. We were both standing in the projection booth. She was at one end of the computer, and I was messing with the sound system on the other side, but happened to turn and look at the projector screen when she was logging into that Google. This hit me like a ton of bricks. The username that she logged in with was the same username as the Text Now account that had been sending me photos. I quickly turned away, pretended to be busy with something until she finished opening up her work. I thanked her. She left the booth without realizing her mistake. I tried to play it cool, but inside I was going crazy for the rest of the class. After almost a year, I finally knew who it was. She finally slipped up, and honestly, I was much more scared now than I had ever been. This person had a history of being pretty creepy around my friends, and although she had never personally interacted with me outside of class, all my friends had strange experiences. I had a meeting with a counselor who seemed to really care and offered to look into it. A couple of weeks later, emailed me saying this student is going abroad next semester, so we're not going to do anything. I insisted that at least something temporary to be put into place. They didn't do anything about it. But what did I expect? This school is pretty notorious for not giving a shit. I didn't run into her again. She hasn't texted me. So for the time being, that is where the story ends. An ex-boyfriend who I dated for a grand total of 3 weeks got really attached in those 3 weeks and told me that he loved me after we had sex. I told him that I was flattered, but didn't reciprocate. I decided to break up with him soon afterwards because he was way too intense. I told him this, and then the abuse began. He began texting, calling, and Facebook messaging me instantly. It varied wildly in what he would say, begging for me to come back or come over for sex, graphically detailing how he hoped that I would die, telling me what a slut that I am. I blocked him from my phone and on Facebook and Snapchat after he ignored my request to stop contacting me. He began messaging me through the accounts of mutual friends and leaving me about 10 voicemails a day. He even got a hold of my work email, which I never gave him, sending me long paragraphs in which he would bounce wildly between laminating his love for me and diagnosing me with various mental illnesses, which was everything from bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety, MPD, and Asperger's syndrome. It was a new one each time. He dragged up the one time that we had sex and telling me that I was broken because why would I not want to be with him? I ended up getting a new email to use at work because it turns out that you can't block someone from emailing you. I once again sent a single line in a reply, and it just said stop contacting me. He wasn't done there. He had previously been texting me, which he was blocked from. He found out that my MacBook can receive iMessages from his iPod Touch using my personal email address, which he did have. So here come the iMessages. Mostly dick pictures that he found on 4chan while calling me a slut and a whore, taking screenshots and posting my angry and distressed replies to his friend group chat. I ended up turning off the iMessage function on my Mac altogether so that he wouldn't do it anymore. Again, I asked him to stop contacting me, this time threatening legal action to stop it, which he allegedly thought was hilarious. I ended up going to the police. They gave him a call, telling him that they knew what was going on and that stalking charges would be pressed if he kept going. They told me to text him in front of them and tell him that the call was coming. His reply made me angry beyond all reason. It said, "Stop contacting me now, bitch. I've had my fun." I didn't reply under any instructions from the police, but I went home and threw things around in anger for about 10 minutes. I haven't heard from him since then. At least that's on the bright side.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.